This year marks the 60th anniversary of Palitoy's Action Man range, my absolute favourite toy line of all time. So to celebrate, I thought I'd run you through what I believe to be the top 15 best Action Man outfits ever released. While I did make a top 10 feature in the very early days of this channel, it was back when I had terrible video and audio equipment, and I've always wanted to correct that and present you with a new list that's been filmed to the standard of quality that you've come to expect from this channel. I also remember it being very difficult to narrow down my list to just 10 action men because the line ran for 18 years, spanning the 60s, the 70s and the 80s. Action Man enthusiasts have also split the range into 3 distinctive periods, with the 1960s being referred to as the painted hair era, the years from 1970 to 1977 being his golden era, and finally 1978 to 1984 being known as the Eagle Eye era. While many collectors simply focus on just one period of Action Man's history, many others just like me are pursuing the entire line. So we thought we would switch things up and change the list from a top 10 to a top 15. And we're going to be breaking the list down by era. So get ready to enjoy the top 5 painted hair era Action Men, the top 5 from the golden era, as well as the top 5 from the Eagle Eye period. So sit back, relax, put on a 60th birthday hat and stay tuned. Welcome back Action Man fans, my name is Tony and we're going unscripted from this point. I've got my list here, I've got my 3 top 5 lists and we'll kick things off with the painted hair era and the British infantry. When the Action Man line was first launched in the United Kingdom in 1966, it was a carbon copy of Hasbro's G.I. Joe that was introduced 2 years prior. And at that time the range consisted of the 4 different branches of the US military, with the Army, Navy, Air Force and Marines all being represented. Yet in 1966 Hasbro brought an international flavour to the toy line when they introduced the Soldiers of the World, a series of 6 World War II uniforms, and I had to pick the British infantryman for this particular list because he represents the first British soldier in the entire toy line. So even though this figure was designed by Hasbro, when it was brought into the Palitoy range, the UK company made a number of changes. We still have that iconic British Tommy helmet, but the material used for the uniforms here varies very differently from what Hasbro produced in the US to what Palitoy released in the UK, with the most significant change being to the gas mask bag. And of course the Palitoy version is infinitely superior. It looks far more like the iconic Mark VII gas mask bag. A piece of equipment that is very near and dear to my heart because that's the bag that was modified and used by Indiana Jones in his iconic movie series. So there we have it, the British infantry takes the number 5 spot on this list because, as I said, he was the first British soldier in the line. Well, at number 4 on our list of the top 5 painted hair era Action Man figures we have the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And this is another outfit that was originally designed for the Hasbro G.I. Joe line. Yet when Palitoy brought it into the Action Man range, they made it a mail-away offering, and I'm an absolute sucker for this kind of thing. For British children in the late 1960s to be able to get their hands on this Royal Canadian Mounted Police uniform for their Action Man figure, they needed to cut out the stars that were included on all of the Palitoy Action Man packaging, which is one of the reasons why vintage boxes are so difficult to find today. And once they'd collected enough stars, they could attach them to the star card, send it away to Palitoy, and then they would receive the Royal Canadian Mounted Police uniform in the mail. And this is a truly iconic Action Man uniform. Even though it's based on a Canadian unit and it was originally created by Hasbro in the United States, British boys of the 1960s and 70s have such fond memories of this particular outfit. And with its bright primary colours, it really stands out well on a display shelf. And that's why he takes the number 4 entry on this list. Number 3 is a personal favourite, and that's the Green Beret. When Palitoy brought the G.I. Joe Soldiers of the World range to the British market, they dropped the Japanese Imperial Soldier and swapped him out for the American Green Beret. And there are a couple of reasons why I am particularly attached to this action figure. First of all, I think it just looks cool as hell, but it was also gifted to me on my 21st birthday by my good friend Neil Taylor, who just so happens to be the most highly respected vintage Barbie collector living in Australia. The Action Man Green Beret is cool as hell, with his jungle fatigue uniform, his M16 and his camouflage scarf. But in order to track down a complete one of these particular uniforms, you need to find a very small accessory that was never issued to the Hasbro G.I. Joe version, and that is the Silver Star medal. And vintage examples of this accessory can sell for an absolute fortune because so many of them were lost back in the day. Yet if you have a nice vintage painted hair Action Man with a complete Green Beret uniform complete with Silver Star, he's likely to be one of the crown jewels of your collection. Now coming in at number 2 for the painted hair era, we have the Deep Sea Diver. And this particular Action Man outfit was so popular that after it was introduced to the range in 1967, different variations continued to appear throughout the toy line right up until around 1983. And it's one of those outfits that even non-Action Man collectors will always remember from their childhood. Now what made the original Deep Sea Diver so cool was that he had a weighted belt and boots, and a pair of airlines that plugged into the back of his helmet, so that when you submerged him in water, the weighted belt and boots would make him sink to the bottom until you blew air through the lines and into his helmet, which would make the diver breach the surface again. So not only is this Action Man outfit very iconic, but he also deserves the number 2 spot on this list just through the sheer functionality and engineering and design. It's a cracking product and the type of toy that companies just don't make these days. And now coming in at number 1 on the list of the top 5 best painted hair era Action Man figures, we have the Polar Explorer. For the first couple of years of Action Man's run, all of the outfits were simply repackaged Hasbro G.I. Joe product. Yet in the late 1960s, Palitoy really wanted to diversify the range. And while they continued making military themed outfits, they also wanted to go in a more adventure themed lane. And the Polar Explorer is the standout outfit from this new adventure themed series. And it also marks the first time that a Palitoy design product headed back across the Atlantic and was introduced into the Hasbro G.I. Joe line. The Polar Explorer comes with a fur-lined anorak, and he's got his skis and his ski poles, and he's ready to go on an expedition to the North Pole. But there is one particular aspect of this outfit that helped it score the number 1 spot on this list, and that is the woven Union flag stitched onto the anorak's front pocket. This simple little detail marks such an important turning point in the history of Palitoy Action Man, because this is when the British toy makers started to move away from their American roots and take the line in a more British direction, a direction that would go on to dominate the rest of the 1970s. If you enjoy the content that we create here at Analog Toys, why not consider supporting us further by becoming a YouTube channel member? You can become an Analog Toys member by clicking the join button on any desktop or mobile device whenever you're watching YouTube. And depending on the tier you choose, you can get access to a number of different perks, including membership badges, early access to all of our feature videos, exclusive members only content and video messages, sneak peeks at some of our upcoming features, and top tier members will even receive a producer's credit at the end of all of our fully produced Analog Toys videos. We have big plans for the future of this channel, with lots of exciting videos in the works. So join the Analog Toys army today. Now we get to Action Man's golden era, and it's called that because this is when Palitoy went balls out British. And let's kick things off with the British Sailor. While this outfit was never made available as a carded uniform, it was only ever sold as a boxed action figure. But I had to include him on this list because he is, first of all, quintessentially British, but he was also the passion project of the founding father of Action Man, Bill Pugh, Palitoy's Director of Design Research and Development, who also happened to be a former member of the British Navy. 3 different box versions of this figure were made available throughout the 1970s, with the only thing that actually changed was the design of the figure inside the uniform. Yet the sailor caps can be found with a number of different ship names embroidered into the ribbon. While this is a very simple uniform, it is just stunningly gorgeous, making it well worthy of entry on this list. At number 4 we have the first of what Action Man collectors call the ceremonials, and realistically this whole list could be ceremonials, but I've tried to be a little bit more picky with my choices. But let's get into it. This is the Argyle and Sutherland Highlander. This outfit was first released in 1970. And Action Man designer Bob Breakin actually travelled up to Stirling Castle to visit the Regimental Museum and take photographs of all the different uniform pieces. This Action Man outfit is very, very difficult to find in nice complete condition. And the uniform includes the sporran and spats, a tartan kilt, and the Glengarry headdress. With uniforms as stunning as the Argyle and Sutherland Highlander, you can certainly understand why Action Man collectors call this period the Golden Era. And this theme continues with our number 3 entry, the 17th 21st Lancers. With the production of this Action Man uniform, Palitoy were really pushing the limits of what was achievable in the 1:6 scale toy arena. The uniform is incredibly ornate, beautifully designed, and it looks absolutely fantastic when paired up with the Action Man horse, which Palitoy introduced a couple of years after this outfit was first released. With the Death or Glory motto and the regimental pennant hanging from his lance, the 17th 21st Lancer is a truly gorgeous Action Man piece, and I'm proud to say that I own 2 in my collection. At number 2 we have one of the most fearsome fighting regiments in the British Army, the Red Devil Paratroopers. At the time of its release, the Parachute Regiment set was notable for being the first modern British combat uniform to appear in the Action Man line. This paratrooper is dressed in green trousers with a zip-up camouflage smock that features real pockets, and the insignia of the British Airborne Forces is worn on the left sleeve. This soldier has also been issued with boots that have real laces, and he wears a pair of puttees, which are cloth bands that wrap around the ankle, providing support and protection to the joint. This Action Man also wears the famous maroon beret, and the earliest examples of this toy's headdress were produced from cloth, with the Parachute Regiment badge being manufactured from either fabric or metal, while later examples of the Action Man Para switched out the cloth beret for one produced in PVC rubber. In the early 70s, Palitoy also created an additional parachute equipment set that was designed to complement the Parachute Regiment uniform. This offering gave children the opportunity to deck out their Action Man Para with a real working parachute that could be attached to the figure with the use of a fabric harness. The Parachute Regiment would go on to become the longest serving famous British uniform in the Action Man range, as it was never dropped from the line, and Palitoy only stopped making the set when they finally ceased production on Action Man in 1985. So at number 1 on the top 5 list of the Golden Era Action Man uniforms, we have the Blues and Royals. This uniform is very similar to the Action Man Lifeguard, with the main differences being the different coloured tunics. So you could say that I've also picked the Lifeguard as the number 1 spot on this list, but I just don't know what it is about it. I just slightly prefer the Blues and Royals. Yet whichever one you want to choose, the Blues and Royals or the Lifeguard, this is hands down the most stunningly beautiful Action Man outfit that Palitoy ever released. There is no question, no debate, this is the pinnacle of the Action Man toy line. When you have the entire set complete with the chrome breastplates, and you have the soldier mounted on the Action Man horse, there is just nothing better in any toy collection anywhere in the world. In fact, this might just be the greatest action figure ever made. I mean, how can you sit there with a straight face and say that this isn't infinitely superior to a Playmates Ninja Turtle? You just can't, and it's because the type of craftsmanship and quality that went into these Action Man products in the early 1970s is a lost art that not only doesn't exist these days, but was also starting to decline in the late 1980s.
Action Man! Now he's got eagle eyes that actually move. On the lookout for action, wherever you take him. Look out for Action Man and his eagle eyes.
Now we have the Eagle Eye period, and this is the era of Action Man that I grew up with. And in the number 5 spot, we have the Battle of Britain pilot. While it's certainly a shame that Palitoy never made a 1:6 scale Spitfire for this guy to fly, you can't not include the Battle of Britain pilot on any kind of a top 10 Action Man list. Partly because of how good the uniform looks, but also because of the essential role that these pilots played in defending our island during the Second World War. This pilot comes in his Royal Air Force uniform with a yellow life preserver, a flying cap and goggles. Now while this may seem like a quite simple uniform, it can actually be quite difficult to find on the second-hand market, especially to get the tunic with all the badges still in place and the elusive red scarf and plastic goggles. And now that I've pulled my one out of the display case to film him for this video, it's made me realise that I really need an upgrade on this guy. Alright, at number 4, this isn't an Action Man outfit, this is an Action Man figure, and I've gone with Captain Zargon. When I first got into collecting Palitoy's Action Man in the 1990s, many of the old school collectors really had a level of disdain for the Space Ranger concept. But I've really seen that turn around over the last couple of decades, as people begin to appreciate these products just a little bit more. And the standout of the entire line for me is not actually any one of the Space Rangers. It's the enemy, Captain Zargon. The box for this figure comes with some gorgeous artwork, as it always does, artwork that was designed and created by Dave Barnacle. And the Captain Zargon figure actually terrified many children in the early 1980s. Now you can clearly see the Darth Vader influence, with the figure having a kind of laser sword and a cape, and him being primarily designed in all black. This is an iconic piece of the Action Man line, and one that's becoming more and more desirable in the collector market every single day. Now I'm sure there's a little bit of personal bias at play with this number 3 entry, but here we go, it's the Long Range Desert Group. This outfit was released in 1979, and it represents one of the British Special Forces soldiers who fought in the North African campaign of World War II. The uniform consists of boots, tall socks, shorts and a short sleeve shirt, as well as that iconic Arab headdress. And the reason I said there might be some personal bias at play here is because when Palitoy shrunk Action Man down to the 3 3/4 inch scale to compete with Star Wars, they renamed the action figure Desert Rat. And then several decades later, when the Action Force trademark fell under the ownership of Valorverse, company director and toy designer Bobby Valor had become a good friend of mine, and he chose to tap into my military background, and he reimagined Desert Rat in the 1 to 12 scale, with the figure being made in my likeness, which was a true honour that I remain eternally grateful for. It's also made me Desert Rat mad, with this being one of the biggest Focus collections that I own. I mean, I've got 2 versions of the original Action Man figure, I've got the original carded outfit. I even have the Action Man bubble bath bottle that features the Long Range Desert Group outfit on the top, and the original metal prototype of the Action Force figure that was very kindly gifted to me by Bob Breakin. So, while I admittedly might have a personal bias here, the Long Range Desert Group was always one of my favourite outfits anyway, and I still think that he's thoroughly deserving of the number 3 spot on this list. Alright, coming in at number 2 on the Eagle Eye era, it's the Fireman. And I chose this particular uniform because he just looks so stunning. And even though I never owned him in childhood, I did own the official equipment manual that featured the whole emergency range on the cover. And I remember desperately wanting this Action Man set in my youth. While the title of this video is the top 15 Action Man figures by Palitoy, I actually have a strong suspicion that this particular uniform was made by the French distributor of Action Man, which was a company called CG Arbois. And if you want to go down that little rabbit hole, I highly recommend that you check out the Action Man Emergency Series video that I made a couple of years ago. Another reason the Fireman ranks so high on this list is because he was designed to complement one of the greatest Action Man vehicles ever created, the Emergency Fire Tender. Now let's be honest, almost every boy that I knew growing up at one point or another wanted to be a fireman when he was older. And with this particular set, Palitoy gave us the opportunity to be the hero and play out those firefighting adventures with our Action Man toys. And it's all led to this, 3 top 5 lists culminating in the number 1 Eagle Eye Action Man ever released, the SAS.
Dramatic end of the 6-day siege. 19 hostages, including the 3 Britons, are safe. The end came with an assault on the building by the Army's Special Air Services Regiment, the SAS, not long after gunmen had killed 2 hostages.
This is likely to be the only toy ever designed to children that was inspired by a terrorist incident. But following the Iranian embassy siege in May of 1980, the entire world wanted to know who the hell were the SAS. These black-clad Special Forces soldiers who stormed the embassy building in front of live TV cameras. And Palitoy capitalised on this public interest by releasing an Action Man SAS figure in late 1980. This set comes with a black jumpsuit, a flak jacket, the iconic gas mask, and an MP5 machine gun. Yet what made the SAS set so cool in the Action Man range is this marked the first time that Palitoy actually produced a full-blown combat team with multiple other outfits and even vehicles, including the SAS airstrike helicopter and the Beachhead attack assault craft. While it may not be the most intricately designed or the highest quality uniform that Palitoy ever put out, it deserves the number 1 spot on this list for being the most iconic Action Man toy released during the Eagle Eye period. And that is our top 15 Palitoy Action Man outfits. I want to thank you all for watching, and to celebrate my childhood friend's 60th birthday, I want to sign off by saying, Cheers, Action Man.
As storm clouds gather over Mrs. Rogers' garden, the Action Man gang assemble for the big parade. It's an impressive display of military muscle. And speaking of muscle, just look at Action Man's new fully posable physique. It's chest out and eyes right as the top brass take the salute. They know that whatever the task, Action Man with his dynamic new physique is ready for action.